Why did not Christ himself say clearly that he is God? And this is the explanation that St. John Chrysostome gave us. What are the reasons then why both he and the apostles have said many humble things about him? The first and most important reason is that he took on human flesh and wants to assure both those then and all later generations that what is seen is neither a shadow nor just a shape, but is a real nature. For if, although so many humble and human things have been said about him by the apostles and by himself, about himself, the devil nevertheless succeeded in persuading some of the wretched and miserable people to deny the cause of his economical incarnation, and to dare to say that he did not take flesh, and thus to harm the whole cause of God's charity. If he had said none of these things, how many would not have fallen into the abyss of the devil? Do you not even know, now here, who denies the economical incarnation of the Lord, as well as the Manicheans and Valentius and many others? Therefore, he says, many humans in humble things, and they fall far short of that secret essence to confirm the cause of his economical incarnation, the salvation plan of God. Since the devil made enormous efforts to uproot this faith from people, knowing that if he uproots from people this faith in incarnation of the Lord, the greater part of all those who constitute our faith will disappear. There is another reason after this, the spiritual weakness of the listeners and the fact that they could not accept the highest truths of faith when they first saw and heard him. And that is, this is not my own idea. I will try to present it and prove it from the scriptures. That is, when once it happened and he said something great and high and worthy of his glory. And why do I say great and high and worthy of their glory? If he ever said something that was beyond the capabilities of human nature, they were disturbed and scandalized. If again he ever said something humble and human, then they ran to him and accepted his words. And where he says, can we see this? Primarily in the Gospel of St. John. For after Jesus said, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad, they answered him, you are not yet 40 years old, and you have seen Abraham? John 8:56-57. Do you see how they behaved towards him as if he were a simple man? So what does he answer? I exist, he says, before Abraham was born. And they took up stones to throw at him. John 8:58. And when he spoke to them at length about the mystery, saying, and the bread that I will give is my flesh, John 6:51, they said, this is a hard saying. Who can hear it? For this reason many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. John 6:60-66. Tell me then, what should he have done? To speak continually with lofty words so that he would drive away the prey and all would reject his teaching? But this was not a sign of his charity. Since again, because he said, he who hears my word will never taste death, John 8:52. They said, did we not say rightly that you have a demon? Abraham died and the prophets died, and you say whoever hears my word will never taste death? John 8:52. And what wonder if the crowd showed such behavior towards him when the rulers themselves were of the same opinion? Indeed, Nicodemus, who was a ruler and came to him with great love and said to him, we know that you are a teacher come from God, John 3:2, could not accept his word about baptism because it was much greater than his spiritual weakness. For when Christ said, except a man be born of water and the Spirit, he cannot see the kingdom of God, he fell into such a low thoughts that he said, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born from heaven? So what does Christ answer? If I have told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? John 3:3-4 and 12. It's as if he were apologizing in some way and saying why he did not speak to them continuously about the heavenly birth. Again, at that hour of his death and on the cross, after countless miracles, after that great demonstration of his power, when he said, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds, Matthew 26:64, not suffering The high priest tore his clothes, and when he heard these words. How then was he to speak to those who could not bear anything high? The fact that he did not say anything great or lofty about himself is not at all admirable, since he was speaking to people who were dragging down and were, so to speak, so weak in spirit. What has been said would suffice to show that this was the cause and reason why the words were spoken in a humble manner, but I will try to make this clear in another way. Just as you saw them being offended, being disturbed, moving away from him, cursing him, and running away, if Christ ever said something great and lofty, so I will try to show you that they themselves ran to him and accepted his teaching if he ever said something humble and lowly. For those same who fled from him, when he again said to them, I do nothing of myself, but as my Father taught me, John 8:28, immediately ran to him. And the evangelist, wishing to show us that they believed because of the humility of the words, points this out by saying, after he had said these things, many believed in him, John 8:30. And elsewhere one could often find this happening. Therefore he often said many things in a human way, and sometimes again not in a human way, but in a godly way, and worthy of his high origin, and on the one hand showing condescendence to the weakness of his listeners, and on the other caring for the correctness of the doctrines. That is, lest by ways always applying condescension to his words, he should harm the faith of his successors in his office. He did not show indifference in this matter either, but although he knew beforehand that they would not listen to him, but would mock him and flee from him, he nevertheless said them, seeking precisely what I have said, and in order to show the reason why he mixed humble words with them. This reason was that they could not yet accept the greatness of what was said. If this were not his pursuit, then the teaching of his high doctrines to those who would not listen to him or pay attention to him was unnecessary. But now, although it did not benefit them at all, yet he taught us and exercised us to have the faith due to him, and he persuaded us that because they could not yet accept the greatness of what was said, he transferred the word to the humbler. So when you see him speaking humbly, you believe that the condescension was not due to the lowliness of his essence, but to the spiritual weakness of those who were listening to him. Do you want me to tell you a third reason? For he did and said many humble things, not only because he took on human flesh, nor because of the spiritual weakness of the listeners, but also because he wanted to teach his listeners to show humility. This, then, is the third reason. For he who teaches humility teaches it not only by words, but also by deeds, showing modesty both in words and deeds. For he says, learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. Matthew 11:29. And again elsewhere he says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. He therefore who teaches us to be humble, and in no way to seek first place, but to accept being inferior everywhere, and who led us to this by word and deed, had many reasons for speaking with humble words. It's possible to mention a fourth reason, no less than those mentioned above. What is it? So that we may not ever think, because of the great and indescribable closeness of the hypostasis of the Son and the Father, that their person is one, especially at a time when even now, although he has spoken of something similar only a few times, some have already been led away to this impiety. Sibelius, that is Livy, because he heard him saying, I and my Father are one, John 10:30, and he who has seen me has seen my Father, John 14:9, seized upon his closeness of the Son's hypostasis to the Father, which is evident from these words, and formulated the impious thought that their person and their substance are one. And these are certainly not the only reasons, but also so that no one may think that he, the Son, is the first and unbegotten essence, and thus consider him superior to the Father. Since St. Paul the Apostle also seems to fear this very thing, lest anyone ever think of this impious and wicked doctrine, that is, after saying, he must reign until he has put his enemies under his feet, and adding that he has put all things under his feet, he added, except for him who put all things under him. 1 Corinthians 15:25. He would not have added this if he had not been afraid that this diabolical thought might arise. And in many other cases, by appeasing the envy of the Jews, he lowers the height of his words. And many times he again answers according to what his hearers were thinking, as when he says, "If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true," John 5:31. He said this addressing what they were thinking of, for of course he did not wish to show this, that his testimony is not true. But he says, "As you think and suspect and do not want to admit me when I speak of myself." But we can find other and more reasons. Of the humility of his words, we could certainly give many reasons. But you tell me yet another reason for his high doctrines, besides the one I have mentioned. And this reason was that he wanted to show us his high origin, but you could not give any other. For the great man could say something small about himself without being blamed for it, since this is said out of modesty, while the small man, if he ever says something great about himself, will not escape blame, because this is a sign of arrogance. For this reason, we all praise the great man when he says humble things about himself, while no one will praise the insignificant man if he ever says something great about himself. Therefore, if the Son, that is our Lord Jesus Christ, were much lower than the Father, as you claim, he should not have said such words by which he showed himself equal to the one who begot him, because this was arrogance. But to be equal to the one who begot him and say some humble and lowly things, there is no blame, because this is worthy of praise and great admiration, as explained by St. John Chrysostome. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.